Hey, changemakers, this is Sparking Innovation, a podcast from Provisio, the largest Salesforce consultancy focused solely on human services. I'm Tom Moran, here to inspire nonprofits and government agencies to drive change in their communities by embracing change in their organizations. And if we're going to put a label on things, that's just change management, right? And put simply, that's the process of getting everyone at an organization acclimated to new processes and technologies or ways of doing things. And so once you've implemented a CRM like Salesforce, your organization has this new wealth of tools to measure impact. And that's really amazing stuff. But there's this critical human side to innovation too, because we know that change is hard. And we also know that humans don't really do very well with that most of the time. So if staff is resistant to changing their old ways, they're not going to fully harness this new technology, which means you're not going to get a lot of value from your Salesforce solutions that you've just invested so much time and money and energy in. So if you're a nonprofit or a government agency and you just made this big investment in some new data-driven technology, how do you ensure that the entire organization actually adopts it and puts it to good use? Well, joining me today are two innovators who find solutions to this challenge every single day for our clients at Provisio. Delivery Manager Blaine Cowart and VP of Client Success Sam Stoterau. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Tom. Glad to be here.
Yeah, great. So, of course, the end goal here in change management is to, create a culture where everyone from leadership on down is enthusiastic as opposed to apprehensive about this major change that they're making. And so I would assume that there's really no better way to help employees actually embrace change than by showing them that it's going to help make their jobs better and it's going to make it easier for them, right? So how do CRMs, A, ultimately improve job satisfaction, and B, do you have any stories of how these positive outcomes of a CRM implementation ultimately got staffers to jump on board with this thing that they might have been hesitant about beforehand?
Yeah, I'm happy to kick us off, and I want to hear your perspective too, Sam. So I just want to ground us in something that I feel like is a universal truth with health and human service organizations and like in the nonprofit and public sectors. The work that you all are doing is hard work. It is important work. It is meaningful work. You do not need to spend your time doing things like pushing paper and working in siloed systems and duplicate data entry and manual data entry and all of the things that are a time suck, taking you away from really dialing into your skill set and pouring in to the clients that you serve in the unique way that you are equipped to be able to support them. And I think too often we function under this assumption that this is the way we've always done it. This is the way it's done. This is the way we'll do it. And I think there's so much beauty in being able to, again, just zoom out a little bit and challenge ourselves to say, does it need to be that way? What might it look like if it weren't done that way? What might it look like if the biggest pain points in my process are solved for? So that's a lot of the pre-work that we did when I was on the client side of things. I'm talking about, for context, way before we sat in front of our implementation partner for a discovery session. Mm-hmm. We did our pre-work in-house to get our own house in order to understand, where do we feel like we're falling short? Where do we feel like we're spending our time doing tedious tasks rather than serving more families, right? In the case of my previous experience, that would be in affordable housing. So like, how do we get more people into homes, right? Right now, we're spending a lot of time collecting paperwork and scanning paperwork and renaming files. How do we do that in an automated fashion so we can actually help more people build financial capability, right? And so I think for me, like reflecting back on that experience, we had several people on my team on the client side who were very scared of this change, Tom, to your question, right? Who are very ambivalent of like, I don't know, I barely know how to use the systems we have now. The idea that I would have to learn something totally net new feels intimidating and scary to me. And so we, again, grounded ourselves in, how do we make your job easier in an authentic way, right? What are you doing today that you wish you would never do again? Or you would do, maybe only 10% of the time versus 100% of the time. We grounded ourselves in that. And then we begin to prioritize. What do we want to tackle in a phase one for this project? What is a wish list item, but we don't need it out the gate? And what we chose to do was prioritize the things were the biggest pain points for our internal users, for our staff, and also for our clients. The things that we heard over and over from our clients that said, it is inconvenient for me. I'll give an example. Inconvenient for me as a single mother working multiple jobs to have to drive into your office and provide a physical copy of my paperwork. I can't get there before 5 p.m. So what are you going to do to be able to help someone like me be able to qualify for this program that I know would be revolutionary for me, right? And so we began to challenge our own ways and say, are we inadvertently creating blockers for the clients that we serve, not in a malicious way, but because we've always done things one way? And what can we do to say, everyone these days has a smartphone in their hand. If we can bring it to your fingertips and make this easy on you, think about how many more families we'll be able to serve. So I think for us, that was a really important thing, is like getting clear on that, getting clear on what those pain points were and how we were making people's jobs easier, both in terms of our staff and our clients. That in and of itself created enthusiasm and motivation and an interest, even among our most cautious staff members when it came to technology, to say, I'm willing to go along for the ride because I know it's going to pay off for me in spades.
You said something there, Blaine, at the very end that I think is so relevant to the concept of this question, and that's job satisfaction, right? With the thought that the CRM change could improve job satisfaction, but you just have to have the buy-in to do it. And ultimately, what we know to be true is the majority share of the human services staff that we work with is so invested in serving their community, right? They're motivated by those that they serve. And ultimately, if we take a 30,000-foot view here and we say, it is our goal that this technology can save you time so you can serve more people, you have that kind of automatic buy-in. And furthermore, if you can take that and say, we're going to link you up with a similar organization who did a technology implementation and reduced the silos and stopped the paper pushing, and it saved them 45 minutes in their intake process, or 4 hours in their intake process, or in your case, weeks of a file folder going between various programs. What a powerful way to say this empowers, or this allows you to serve more people because you have more time with those people and less time with your technology.
And Sam, I want to just add one more thing that hearing you describe that made me think of as well. When I was in the nonprofit space, I led a team of frontline staff who worked day in and day out with the families that we served. But oftentimes I heard from leaders across the organization talk about staff who didn't have that privilege. And in many ways, that was a privilege, right? You get to tangibly see the mission in action every single day. But if that's 25, 30% of your staff, then 75, 80% of your staff doesn't have that privilege. How do you help them tie in what they do on an everyday basis into your mission, right? And technology is a beautiful way to do that, to be able to say, we've done X number of tasks in a given period, and this is what that means in terms of the important work that we do collectively as an organization. And I think to the theme of job satisfaction, so many folks work in the health and human service organization space, the nonprofit sector and public sectors, to be able to do that meaningful work and be a part of a bigger change and have influence in their community, right? And so like the more that you can tie back what you're doing to that mission, all the better. And I think technology can do that in so many really beautiful ways.
Yeah, being able to see that the work that you're doing is making a big impact in a different way, and shedding more light on that is, I'm sure, a really effective way to get people to buy into it. So, okay, so moving on, we know that CRMs like Salesforce allow organizations to more effectively track the things that they've been tracking forever, right? But they can also track new measures of impact and success that they maybe weren't measuring before. And that can include like anecdotal successes as opposed to those traditional hard data metrics that you've been tracking for a long time. So do you have any like specific examples of these anecdotal outcomes that Salesforce can illuminate, which are not like normally quantified? And how can an organization tie those things into their larger impact story?
I love the way that Salesforce, especially for health and human services clients, allows us to see how we're serving a population in a community, specific subsets of that population, and moreover, the family, right? So many of the organizations that we work with have deep, deep roots in how we're serving the family as a whole. And oftentimes we find that the data related to the individual is siloed to that program or that individual, and Salesforce is the vehicle that ties that together, really allowing an organization who's made the choice to go with a CRM the opportunity to look at a family or a group of people who are related in some way as a whole and say these are all of the areas in which we've served that family, and ultimately this is how that family has benefited from all of the service lines that we as an organization provide. I think that's a really spectacular, large scale result of a CRM implementation that I think it doesn't happen across the board. It doesn't happen when an organization is siloed and they're only focused on their specific program or the individuals that are enrolled in that program. I also think the CRM implementation as a whole, in terms of the anecdotal outcomes, the ability to do things faster so folks can focus on other things, serving their families either directly or indirectly is super powerful, whether it's saving time on something like the intake or aggregating data that they couldn't aggregate in that way before. That really to me is what this is all about.
Yeah, I love that so much. I think what I hear you really sort of hitting on here, Sam, and what you've described is what I would call like outcomes versus outputs, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
oftentimes with the systems that we've got on hand and the tools that we have, right? Like we've got no option but then to say, we've served 50 families in classes this year, and we've brought 100 families in for counseling, and 10 families have purchased a home. And we think that's all good things, right? And they maybe are good things. And I think what technology transformation allows us to do, requires us to do, if I'm being honest, is challenge this notion of, are outputs enough? Is that really telling the whole story? What is the undercurrent that's there that's maybe it feels less tangible because it's qualitative data, not quantitative data? And we've not captured it because we've not had a mechanism to capture it, right? So like in the example I gave, maybe you're thinking about things like economic mobility, right? So you're going to get someone in a house, in an affordable house as an example. What does that mean for them, right? What has that allowed their family to do? And how are you able to capture that information? Or something like financial capability, right? We've got these, data sets perhaps on things like, what was your income like when you started working with us? What was it like when you stopped coaching and entered into homeownership? What was your credit score like? What was your debt like, right? How do we paint this picture of, here's how you came to us, here's how our program allowed you to build that capability? And that's our real impact, right? The result, we used to say when I was in the affordable housing space, the house is not the real win. I mean, that is a huge win, right? But the real win is that you've built financial capability. The real win is that now you know how to manage your money successfully. The real win is that now you've set your family up for generational wealth building opportunities, right? Like that's the data that funders want to hear, quite frankly. That's the data that your board wants to hear that you all are doing. And so the question here, I think, is like, how do you build systems that allow you to tell that part of your story, maybe in a way that you've never told it before, and allows you to challenge your own internal definition of success? That was a big part of what we did in my personal journey, was like, understand, we've always said, this year we built this many homes, the year before we built that many homes. That means we were successful. Is that enough? Is that enough? Or do we need to be digging into it more? And do we have the data sets to be able to analyze and understand and make informed decisions on how we adjust our programming to serve the families that we serve better?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the hard numbers are certainly one effective way to ultimately show success, but we humans are storytellers, right? And we understand stories, and that's how we comprehend the world. And so, though that those anecdotal outcomes are a really great way for us to really grasp onto like, okay, that's the real impact of that. Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I'm sure we do another whole episode about outcomes versus outputs. um, so guys, what happens after post go live? Why is it so crucial that an organization determines who's responsible for maintaining that new system? And, from a change management perspective, why is it important that an organization embraces ongoing enablement support and system enhancements down the line?
Yeah. Um, okay, Sam has a million things to say on this topic, so I want to make sure she has a chance to dive in because this is the universe that Sam lives in every day at Provisio, right? With supporting our clients post go live. But here's what I'll say quickly, and then Sam, I'll turn it to you. I would say in so many ways during implementation projects, we think about go live as the end. It is only the beginning, right? It is only beginning for users who are like just now starting to use a brand new system. And so I think as we think about successful implementations, recognizing that that is not where this chapter just closes and it's done and we've implemented a static technology and we're good to go. When it comes to implementing something like a CRM specifically, when we're talking about constituent relationship management and understanding how we attain these 360-degree views of our data and of our clients, that does require us to think about a long-term strategy for how we continue to enhance these systems, how the systems adapt as our programs change and evolve, and as we add new programs and all of the dynamics to account for it. And I think too, as we think about user adoption, recognizing that go live is just the beginning for so many users. Users are going to come in and they're going to say, maybe this is what I thought I wanted, but now I'm in it. And maybe I'd like to see it done just a little bit differently. That's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But I think that really speaks to the importance of having an infrastructure in place, meaning you've got somebody in-house or in partnership with your team or both who's able to really think thoughtfully and strategically about how you maintain your system, how you maintain the integrity of your data. If the plan is to use that data to tell your story, how do you make sure your data is accurate and clean? And all of that requires a tremendous amount of forethought and strategy. But like I said, Sam, this is your world. So I'll turn it to you.
Opened so many doors for me there, Blaine. I was just coming up with a talking point for everything that you said. And there's one area that you brought up that I feel like is a really worthwhile place to start. And that's the evolution of the system. The concept that you have technology that can and will evolve with you is so crucial to making this decision and to committing to this journey. For so many people who may have been in the space for years and years, they're used to a system that is static and doesn't change and can't adapt to board member requirements or funder requirements. And so acknowledging that when you are starting this journey is paramount. And it's so funny that we started this question at Go Live and we've circled all the way back to making a commitment to the technology journey, but it is a worthwhile point um, um, to make in response to this question. The other piece that I think is critical to call out is, Tom, when you asked the question, you asked about change management at Go Live, and I wanted to just quickly say to folks, change management does not start at Go Live. It starts when you make this commitment. Through this CRM, change management starts with informing your users that you're making this change. It is critical to say, you're involved in this process and we want you to be an active member of this change. And this is how this change impacts you. And these are all the positives that we as an organization recognize are going to come from this change. And then we get through the implementation and we keep people informed and we get to that go live. And Blaine highlighted some really, really crucial points. One thing I want to talk about is your preparedness for post-go live support services, be it through another vendor or that your internal team is equipped with the right people on staff to take that on. Are your staff aware of how they can seek support in those critical days and weeks in that post go live journey? I'm thinking very broadly, everything from enablement sessions to one pagers and quick reference guides to this is how you submit a support ticket and this is how we anticipate being able to work with you as a leader at an organization too, who's ultimately responsible for staff adopting the system. How can they communicate how they're experiencing the system? How can they communicate how the system serves them and how the system doesn't serve them? And maybe identify where we went wrong in the discovery process and adjust course accordingly. I think the final point that I'll make here is the organization's willingness to share out that this is an evolution, that this journey will take shape over the course of a very long, potentially period of time, that this particular phase or the first implementation or the first scope of work towards that technology journey as a whole is just that. It's you're dipping your toes in, you're just getting started, and that there's so much more to come in the future. I think it's crucial to share that technology vision, and where an implementation project fulfills it, at least initially, and where they hope to go in the future with the implementation to fulfill that vision.
Yeah, it's definitely not like a one and done kind of thing and you never think about it again. It's
Never.
a long-term
Mhm.
process that takes nurturing in the future, for sure. Okay, so final question for you guys. I want you to think of the clients who have most successfully adapted after a technology transformation and then gotten the best results from it. So without naming names, what did those clients do to boost user adoption?
We went
Sam,
to,
I'm thinking of one of our favorite shared
yep,
examples,
yes,
right? And we won't
yep,
name names, but we know, I think like the strategy that this client took. So
so good.
in a nutshell, I'll give my version of it. I'd love to hear your perspective on this as
Yep.
well. This client in tandem, really like running concurrently with an engagement that we were supporting them with, launched some internal efforts for improving their Salesforce instance as well. And so they led their own training in-house. So mind you, they had dedicated resources, what Sam just spoke to, right? Like a system administrator, a team who is there to support their internal Salesforce users. And they were training frontline staff, many of whom were brand new to Salesforce, never seen the system before. They knew it was going to be intimidating. So they wanted to make it super fun. So they curated this week-long training event, and the theme was Rihanna. I mean, could you think of a better theme? It was amazing. So they had, I mean, you were there in person, Sam.
Yeah, it was so fun. It was so fun to be a part of such a large scale change. And I think what is most notable about that, reflecting on that experience, it was fun. People were entertained, people were bought in, but moreover, the organization had committed to allowing them the space to have fun and get to know their system at the same time. And to me, that was such a powerful springboard, if you will, to adoption. The other thing that I feel like is super notable about this organization, same organization, is that they had, as Blaine said, a strong internal team, but they had committed quite a bit of time and energy to role-based training documentation. It lived in their internal CRM. And, despite what you might get from your technology partner, ultimately at the end of the day, bridging the gap between what people know about their job, what has changed from a process perspective, and how that equates to a new system is super important. So really leveraging the opportunity to do that, I think, is a huge, huge boost for user adoption, at least initially. Another organization that I am thinking of committed to, I think we did weekly lunch and learns as the vendor, as their ongoing support partner. We did weekly lunch and learns for, oh my gosh, probably upwards of 6 months. And so I think at the end of the day, if you could make that investment in ongoing support services, what I'll say is make it with a vendor who's willing to host things for you in the case that internally you don't have the capacity to do so.
So
Yeah,
true.
going back to your first example of the Rihanna clients, it makes me think of in education, right? Like teachers who can find ways to make lessons fun oftentimes are the most effective teachers.
Absolutely.
Those same things that worked for you when you were a kid still work on adults too. So
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Sam and Blaine, thank you so much for joining this episode of Sparking Innovation. I really appreciate it.
It was such a
Glad to be
pleasure.
here.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for having
Tom.
us.
Thanks, Blaine.
So fun.
And if you work for a nonprofit or state or local governments and are interested in how Provisio can kickstart your innovation journey, contact us at provisiopartners.com. A link to our website is in the show description. And be sure to subscribe to this podcast to catch the next episode of the show. Thanks for listening.